But you got to follow how this market and how this economy is moving, because this is a big deal for a lot of people out there. So when is the next recession coming? You have to remember, I watched Warren Buffett on a video where he said you have to remember, when one person buys a stock, even though that might be high and then the stock drops, there's somebody buying it when it's low. So even on the same day, there's a winner and there's a loser, and you never know where people are at, but you have to pay attention to all of this stuff. So when is the next recession coming? First of all, let's define what a recession is. Now, we know that the definition has been reinvented, or I can't even say if it was a definition, but I thought it was a definition of a recession, but then of course it wasn't, and then God knows what happened. I'm going to take it for what I've known it to be, what it's generally accepted to be: 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, gross domestic product. In order to see if we are in a recession, what they look at is how much money is being spent in the United States, or any country you're measuring, how much money is being spent today versus 1 month ago, 1 year ago, or whatever. So when they look at this month, they're going to compare it to, let's say, even last month or even last year. It doesn't even matter, okay? But they're using the past as a benchmark. So when you say negative GDP growth, that means the spending is less than the previous month, the previous quarter, or the previous year. The GDP report's about to come out here right now over the last quarter. They're expecting the third quarter of 2022 to be plus 2.6% GDP growth. Now, the first 2 quarters of 2022 were negative. I want to say it was negative 1.6 in the first quarter, negative, I think it was 0.6 in the second quarter. So there's 2 consecutive quarters. That's a recession. But then, of course, a lot of people in the government came out and said because unemployment was so strong, it wasn't really a recession. And that's when all of a sudden the definition was not even a definition. They reinvented it, or they did something, which is what the government is masterful in, right? They know how to spend money masterfully, and they know how to recreate things just to fit their agenda, but I'll leave that off to the side. So the first 2 quarters were like that. The third quarter of 2022, it's estimated as of right now, it's going to come in positive. That breaks the first 2 quarters of this year. So the question becomes, to have another recession, well, third quarter of 2022 is positive, you'd have to have the fourth quarter of 2022 and the first quarter of 2023. Think about that. The first quarter of 2023 is January, February, March. They don't come out with that report until May, looking back on the first quarter. So the truth is, the soonest, the absolute soonest we can find out if we are in a recession or if we were in a recession, because the truth is, you don't really find out that you're in a recession, you find out that you were in a recession. It's looking back at the past. The soonest is going to be May of 2023, and that assumes Q4 and Q1 are both negative. Let me give you my prediction. I think in the best case scenario, the absolute best case scenario, I think Q4 is going to be positive, okay? Q3 is definitely coming in positive. I think Q4 is going to come in positive. Let's go to Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 of next year. Those are quarters, okay? The best case scenario for a recession, saying we're in a recession, is Q1 and Q2 being negative. Q2 ends on June 30th. That means we won't find out until August of 2023 if the first 2 quarters were negative GDP growth and we were in a recession. The truth is, I don't think the first quarter of Q1 is going to be negative. I don't think it's going to be. I think you're looking at more of Q2, Q3, or even into Q4. So the problem is, I don't think we're going to find out we're in a recession. If it becomes Q2 and Q3, you're not finding out about Q3's number, the third quarter, which the third quarter ends September 30th. You don't get that data until the end of November. So if it's Q2, Q3, we won't find out about a recession until the end of November of 2023. So when the question is when is the recession coming? And trust me, it's coming. What's really gonna bring the hammer on the recession is unemployment. Unemployment as of right now is about 3.7%. Unemployment, you gotta remember, everything is inflation based. This recession, a hard recession, is needed to really bring inflation down. And people watching me, it's always like, I know Sherrod Brown, he's the head of like the Senate Finance Committee or something like that. He actually said to Jerome Powell a few weeks ago, you cannot continue to raise rates at the cost of jobs. Here's the problem. When inflation is running at almost 8%, this is what that means. If you take $100 today and buy a bunch of things with it, in 1 year from now, with inflation at 8%, the same $100 today, you need $108 in 1 year from now just to buy the same thing. The Fed funds rate is basically at 4% right now, okay? Now your savings account are not at 4%. Your savings accounts today are at best 2 to 3%. I know my money managers out there, Hesh, we got money markets in the 3s and CDs in the 4s. And I get it, good. Let's just say 4%. When the rate of interest you're getting paid is 4%, that means if you have $100 today, in 1 year from now earning interest, you're gonna have $104. Here's the problem. Because of inflation, you might have 104, you now need 108 to buy the same thing. So what just happened to your standard of living? You cannot even buy in 1 year from now the same things to survive that you bought today. You have to buy less of them, which means your quality of life slowly deteriorates. Inflation whittles away at your foundation and your base. How do we bring down inflation? Simple. We stop spending. How do you get people to stop spending? I'll give you one way, lay them off. Raise unemployment. It sounds horrible, but at the end of the day, inflation will literally crush the whole economy and take everybody out with it. We need unemployment to go up. Unemployment's about to start going up. I don't think we're really going to see big rises in unemployment until the first and second quarter of next year. People are going to be living off of unemployment, credit cards, things like that. I don't think we're going to feel it until Q3, Q4 of next year. So my personal opinion on when is the next recession coming, personally, I don't think it's coming until at best, the fall of next year, Q3 into Q4, and more realistically into the early part of 2024. Now, if they open up the supply chains, which is a whole nother topic, you open those things up, you're gonna bring inflation down real fast. You bring inflation down, we can have what they call, of course, a soft landing, okay? Pay attention to the next recession. The next part of the recession that really has to occur is unemployment. Unemployment must go up. We're at 3.7 right now. In 2010, during the Great Recession, the Great Recession was 2007-8, but following that recession, that's when unemployment peaked at nationally 9.9%. Right now we're 3.7. I personally think unemployment will peak out in the 5s and 6s in the worst case scenario. So when you look at those numbers, it will not be anywhere near what this country went through during the Great Recession, which was back in 2007-8. But it's still something to pay attention to. At the end of the day, it's not good if one person loses a job. It never is for that person, because that's the whole world. But we're running an economy, and you have to pay attention to the numbers and how they work. So pay attention to my other videos. Like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos. And I hope to be following you on the next one. We'll see you next time.